Welcome to the Deep Dive, the show that cuts through the noise to get you to the truly essential insights. You pick up so many books out there promising the recipe for success, the 5 steps to greatness, the ultimate hack for happiness. But what they often miss, what they kind of skim right over, is the truly hard thing about building something great, about facing, well, real-world challenges.
Exactly. And the hard thing isn't just like a bump in the road, is it? It's this relentless, often counterintuitive reality that entrepreneurship, that leadership throws at you. Our deep dive today is going to, pull back the curtain on those brutal truths, drawing directly from someone who's not only lived through them, but actually emerged stronger.
Absolutely. Our source material takes us deep into the personal story and, well, the hard-won lessons of Ben Horowitz, a man who's been a founder, a CEO, and now a venture capitalist. He offers an incredibly candid look at the struggles faced when building companies from scratch, warts and all. So our goal for you, the listener, is to extract those surprising nuggets of wisdom, maybe some practical strategies, and those aha moments that you can immediately apply. Whether you're facing challenges in your career, with your team, or, even just in your personal life, we'll explore how navigating the most difficult moments can reveal profound truths about leadership and human nature, really.
So let's dive in. Ben Horowitz introduces us to the struggle. It's not just a bad day. He defines it as this relentless pain and unhappiness. It's that profound feeling of being completely alone, even when you're surrounded by people. It's waking up in a cold sweat when what was once like your dream transforms into an absolute nightmare.
Right. And what's crucial, I think, is that he explicitly states the struggle isn't failure itself, but it's the very thing that causes failure. It just grinds you down. And I think it's important to realize this isn't exclusive to CEOs or startup founders. I mean, if you're involved in any demanding endeavor, you will encounter overwhelming difficulties that can feel just like the struggle.
Yeah.
It's a universal experience, that extreme pressure.
It truly is. And what's fascinating is how much of Ben's ability to navigate these struggles seems to stem from a truly unexpected personal foundation, like going all the way back to his childhood.
Right. It's kind of amazing. His father, for example, was what Ben calls a red diaper baby, which means his grandparents were actual card-carrying communists. Can you believe his father was passing out communist literature in Queensbridge, New York at just 11 years old? His grandfather even lost his job as a school teacher during the McCarthy era because of it.
It's such a striking contrast, isn't it? I mean, from staunch communism to a leading figure in Silicon Valley venture capitalism, it's quite a jump. Ben himself grew up in the People's Republic of Berkeley, and he describes himself as incredibly shy as a young child, so much so that he was actually kicked out of nursery school for crying nonstop.
Oh, wow.
His mother's remarkable patience was key. She apparently just waited for him to get comfortable with the world on his own terms.
And there's this incredible, really formative childhood experience he shares, the wagon incident. When he was 5, an older kid, Roger, dared him to go up to another kid, Joel Clark Jr., demand his wagon, spit in his face, and use a racial slur.
Oh, God.
Ben was terrified of Roger, but also, terrified of the dare itself. So he walks what felt like 30 miles down the street, and what comes out of his mouth? Can I ride in your wagon?
Oh.
Joel says, sure. And they became lifelong best friends. What do you even take from that kind of early lesson?
Well, it's clearly far more than just a childhood story, right?
Yeah.
It's a foundational lesson for him. Being scared doesn't mean you're gutless.
Right.
It's what you choose to do in that moment that defines you. And crucially, it taught him not to judge by surfaces. You don't truly know anything until you make the effort to understand it, or someone, deeply. That ability to see beyond the obvious, to separate facts from perception, becomes invaluable later on.
And that idea, separating facts from perception, was hammered home for him early and often. He mentioned being the only kid on the football team who was also in the highest academic track for math.
Yeah.
So he constantly moved between these wildly different social circles. What the football team thought was a huge deal, like Run DMC's Hard Times album, barely registered in his calculus class, and vice versa.
And this exposure to diverse perspectives became a critical skill for him as a CEO, In really dire circumstances, when the obvious facts seem to dictate a certain outcome, he learned to look for alternative narratives, different explanations from radically different viewpoints, just to maintain hope and find a path forward.
Yeah. Questioning the consensus.
Exactly. Something he learned from constantly shifting his own perspective back then.
This whole theme of not judging by first impressions carries right into his personal life, too. He tells this story about being set up on a blind date with Felicia Wiley.
Okay.
He shows up with a black eye from a basketball fight.
Oh, no.
And her first impression, as she later told him, was simply, this guy's a thug.
Huh. Fortunately, neither of them relied on that initial judgment. They've been happily married for, what, nearly 25 years now? 3 kids.
Yeah.
It's a powerful personal testament, really, to the value of looking deeper. First impressions are often just that.
And speaking of personal life, his career path in Silicon Valley took an immediate hit, a really serious one, when his second daughter, Mariah, was diagnosed with autism.
Mm-hmm.
That made working at a startup, with all its inherent demands, just an unbearable burden on his family.
Yeah, the source material shares a very blunt story about a conversation with his father during this period. It's quite something. On a scorching hot day, kids crying because they couldn't afford air conditioning, his father apparently said, "Son, do you know what's cheap? Flowers. Flowers are really cheap, but do you know what's expensive? Divorce."
Oof,
Oh,
that's a gut punch, right?
totally.
But it forced Ben to completely reevaluate his priorities. He realized he'd been living as if he had unlimited bandwidth, trying to do everything. This joke, if you can call it that, made it brutally clear he was risking his family. He quit NetLabs the next day.
Oh.
He calls it the moment he stopped being a boy and became a man, putting his family first.
What stands out there is how that personal pivot was foundational to his later professional success. He often talks about leadership requiring you to be a whole person.
Yeah.
And this sounds like the moment he really committed to being the person he wanted and needed to be.
So, with that profound personal shift, it's fascinating to see how it influenced his next career move. He was working at Lotus, I think, when a coworker showed him Mosaic, the first graphical interface to the internet. He immediately thought, this is the future. I am wasting my time.
He then learned about Netscape, co-founded by Mosaic inventor Mark Andreessen, and desperately wanted to work there. But his interview process was initially, well, disheartening. A recruiter actually told his wife, Felicia, that he likely wouldn't get the job because they were looking for Stanford or Harvard MBAs.
Oh, wow.
Felicia was apparently in tears, knowing it was unrealistic for him to go back to school with 3 kids.
But then he gets an interview with Mark Andreessen himself, who was only, 22 at the time?
Yeah, incredibly young.
And Ben was just blown away. Andreessen didn't ask about his resume, apparently, but instead launched into this dizzying inquiry into the history of email and collaboration software. Ben called his brother after, saying Mark might be the smartest person he'd ever met. Just shows you never know where genius will pop up.
And that genius at Netscape really shifted the perspective on the internet's early days. I mean, most industry leaders like Bill Gates with the road ahead and Larry Ellison, they envisioned this proprietary information superhighway model that would essentially tax every transaction. They wanted to control the flow.
Right, the walled garden approach.
Exactly.
Yep.
But Netscape, despite some initial plans maybe involving those networks, ultimately pivoted to making the open internet the future. That was a hugely significant decision, betting on accessibility over control.
And that bet paid off spectacularly. Netscape's IPO in August 1995 was just historic. Priced at $14, doubled to $28, spiked to $75, closed at $58.
Incredible numbers.
This wasn't just a financial success. It fundamentally shifted the perception of new economy versus old economy. Suddenly, the new economy was winning, very publicly.
But the euphoria didn't last long, did it? Microsoft then announced they would bundle Internet Explorer with Windows 95 for free.
The classic move.
Yeah, and this was a huge threat, because Netscape's revenue came mostly from browser sales, and Microsoft controlled over 90% of operating systems. It was a real David versus Goliath situation.
So their counter strategy was bold. I mean, truly a desperate gambit, it sounds like.
Yeah.
If Microsoft was giving away their browser, Netscape would offer a dirt-cheap open alternative to Microsoft Backoffice, their suite of server products. The acquired companies secured a landmark deal with Informix, a database company, to provide relational database access for just $50 a copy, which was like hundreds of times less than Microsoft charged.
Wow, that's aggressive.
Mike Homer, who Ben calls a fierce warrior for Netscape, named this package Sweet Spot.
And this really brings us to the Loud Cloud Opsware saga, which is just a masterclass in crisis management. It put all his early learnings to the absolute test. Loud Cloud was born from the need to solve scaling issues for AOL partners, basically. It really pioneered the concept of a computing cloud where the complexity of infrastructure was handled by the provider, not the user.
Right, the term cloud hadn't really been used like that before Loud Cloud. They were definitely ahead of their time.
Definitely.
But they grew incredibly fast, maybe too fast. Hiring 30 people a month, 200 employees in just 6 months, and then boom, the dot-com crash.
Yeah.
They were bleeding cash, and raising more money became incredibly difficult, almost impossible.
This led to one of the most direct pieces of feedback you'll ever hear described. Ben's friend and board member, the legendary Bill Campbell,
Oh, yeah.
after getting some back-channel info from SoftBank Capital, told Ben directly, and I'm quoting here, "You are totally fucked."
Wow. Just like that.
Just like that.
Yeah.
That's the kind of blunt honesty leaders sometimes need, isn't it? Even if it stings.
Absolutely. And it underscores Mark Andreessen's humorous but deeply true observation about startup emotions. Remember that one?
Oh, yeah, the euphoria and terror one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You only ever experience two emotions, euphoria and terror. And I find that lack of sleep enhances them both. It sounds like it was pretty much constant terror for Ben back then.
Yeah, it sounds like it. So with time running out, only $2 million in trailing revenue, 340 employees, and just 6 weeks of cash left, Ben made the seemingly impossible decision: take LoudCloud public in 2001.
2001. Widely considered the worst time ever for a tech IPO. It's almost unthinkable.
Throughout this whole insane period, Bill Campbell was a critical figure on their board. Ben described him as both kinds of friends, the one you call when something great happens, and the one you call when things go horribly, horribly wrong. Bill was the real deal. He sounds like a true mentor, just invaluable.
Yeah.
And he was. The pivotal transformation for the company came when Ben decided to spin out the software, Opsware, from the cloud services business. The software was initially hardwired to physical machines and even had a questionable UI, a purple pimp hat interface, apparently.
Oh, okay.
But it had potential.
But here's where it gets really interesting and super counterintuitive. Ben made the call to ship this unfinished product. Just get it out there, enter the market, and learn fast.
Yeah.
Rather than waiting for perfection. He knew they'd probably fall on their faces, as he put it, but they would learn quickly and adapt to survive.
Yeah.
It's almost the opposite of traditional tech wisdom.
This strategy led them straight into a critical must-win deal with EDS, a massive contract, $20 million per year that could literally save the company. But the conditions were terrible. EDS had these ancient networks, slow 56K links. Their employees were unhappy.
Sounds like a nightmare setup.
Totally. Ben told his team, this is a must-win. If EDS drops us, we're fucked and it's over. So our only option is to win. The stakes just couldn't have been higher.
And he instructed his team to find the exciting value, something beyond what EDS even expected. This led to that great airport bar anecdote.
Ah, yes.
Where they discovered Frank Johnson, the EDS manager in charge of servers, absolutely hated the free Computer Associates CA product he was being forced to use for inventory.
Right. He needed a solution to a problem he couldn't even openly complain about. It was a hidden pain point. And this discovery led to the ingenious Tangram solution. They went out and acquired Tangram licenses. It was an IT asset management software, and bundled them for free with Opsware for EDS.
Free? How did that work financially?
Well, it sounded economically impossible to Wall Street, but it won over Frank Johnson. It wasn't just about selling Opsware. It was about solving Frank's real hidden pain point. That's a masterclass in sales, really.
But the struggle wasn't over yet, was it? Ernst & Young, their auditor, nearly blew the whole thing up.
Right, the CA clause issue. It revolved around this clause in their contracts meant to prevent vendors from charging for upgrades to basically renamed products in enterprise software. E&Y's interpretation meant they'd have to restate revenue, which would kill the EDS deal.
So what happened?
Miraculously, Ben's team got 3 large banks to amend their contracts in less than 24 hours. It was insane.
Wow.
This demonstrated what he calls the sky is purple lesson. You just have to deal with reality as it is, not as you wish it were, no matter how absurd it seems.
And what did all this perseverance teach him? I mean, going through all that.
The core lesson is profound. There is always a move. Even with 6 weeks of cash left, going public in the worst market ever, Ben showed there's always some path forward if you're willing to fight for it. He learned that if you play long enough, you might get lucky because tech changes so fast.
Yeah.
And ultimately, his brutal takeaway is that nobody cares about your excuses. You just have to run your company. It's a stark reminder of that ultimate CEO responsibility.
It really sounds like those extreme pressures, those near-death experiences, forged his core philosophy. As Ben Horowitz transitioned from facing these existential threats to actually building a resilient company, his principles of people management became incredibly important. He adopted Jim Barksdale's core philosophy. Take care of the people, the products, and the profits, in that order. And he stresses that taking care of people is the most difficult part, but also the most essential.
What's fascinating there is his definition of a good place to work. In good organizations, people focus on their work and trust that good things will happen. In poor ones, it's all politics and fear.
Yeah.
He uses Bill Campbell's Go-Go Corporation as an example of financial horrible failure, but employees remembered it as their greatest work experience ever because of Bill's leadership. It shows success isn't just the bottom line for the people involved.
And a big part of taking care of people, it turns out, is training, which seems obvious, but apparently isn't always done.
Right. Ben points out the absurdity. McDonald's trains its workers meticulously, but often, people in far more complex tech jobs don't get proper training. He learned this at Netscape, where Andy Grove's good product manager, bad product manager document apparently dramatically improved his team's performance.
Yeah.
He also found that after money, the two main reasons people quit tech jobs were hating their manager and not learning anything new. That's a huge insight for any organization. And this connects directly to some really tough hiring decisions he had to make in the trenches, like when hiring a head of sales, Mark Craney.
Oh, yeah. Tell me about that.
Ben made the difficult call to hire him despite unanimous thumbs-down votes from his executives and board members. They thought he didn't look like a head of sales and made people feel uncomfortable.
And the cultural fit challenge was real there, too, wasn't it? Ben shares this shocking reference check where a former colleague told him about Cranny, "I don't give a fuck how well trained you are. If you don't bring me $500,000 a quarter, I'm putting a bullet in your head." Ben realized he was at war, essentially, and he needed a wartime general like Cranny, not someone focused on, niceties or traditional appearances. He was hiring for survival.
And this highlights why those been there, done that. Big company execs often fail in small companies, right?
Mm-hmm.
Big company execs are typically interrupt-driven, optimizing existing businesses. Startups need build-driven leaders who create something new from scratch. Cranny, despite his style, was a builder, exactly what LoudCloud needed then.
It's also clear that communication and metrics can easily go wrong, leading to unintended consequences.
Yeah.
Ben talks about how managers often get what they ask for, but not really what they want.
Yeah, like the hockey stick revenue problem. He tried to fix it by incentivizing early deals.
And the deals just shifted to the next quarter's start.
Exactly.
It's like...
Or at HP, how divisions made their numbers but sacrificed future R&D to do it. It's not just hitting targets, it's how you hit them. Exactly. If you manage purely by the numbers, he says you're just painting by numbers, you inevitably miss the qualitative stuff, which is often the most crucial for the long term. You need to understand the white box, like how did the organization actually produce those numbers? Otherwise, you might be killing future innovation or morale for a short-term win.
Ben also introduces this really useful concept of management debt, drawing a parallel to technical debt in software.
Right.
This is when you make quick, easy management decisions that accumulate interest later. Things like putting two in the box, having two people in one role, or just having no performance management process at all.
Yeah, those shortcuts feel good, maybe in the moment, but they create huge problems down the line. Cost you much more eventually. Another fascinating insight is about cultivating the right kind of ambition. He emphasizes that senior managers absolutely must optimize for the company's success, not their own personal career trajectory. He actually recommends Dr. Seuss's Yertle the Turtle as a management masterpiece for understanding the dangers of managers with the wrong kind of ambition, those who prioritize their own climb over the well-being of the whole stack.
So how do you deal with those smart but bad employees?
Yeah.
It sounds incredibly difficult. Ben categorizes them.
Yeah, 3 types. The heretic, smart but destructive, actively undermining. The flake, brilliant but totally unreliable, like that engineer who worked 72 hours straight then vanished.
Okay.
And the jerk, just toxic behavior that poisons the well. These are tough calls. They are, and this is where the hold the bus philosophy comes in, borrowed from coaches like John Madden and Phil Jackson.
Okay.
Madden said you can't hold the bus for everyone, but sometimes you have a player so good you hold it for him, but only him. Jackson added, there's only room for a very few Dennis Rodmans in society as a whole. You have to decide if the genius outweighs the massive disruption, and the answer, he suggests, is usually no. It's a tough but necessary leadership call.
One of the most practical takeaways, I think, for any manager listening is the power he attributes to one-on-one meetings.
Absolutely. He stresses these are the employees' meetings, not the manager's agenda dump. The manager should listen, like 90% of the time, and draw out issues with open-ended questions. What's not fun about working here? What's the biggest opportunity we're missing? Are you happy working here?
It's about actually listening, getting that ground-level truth.
And culture, he argues, isn't just something that happens. It can be actively programmed through consistent signals and actions.
Right, the examples are great. Amazon's door desks to signal frugality.
And Drace and Horowitz's own $10 per minute fine for being late to entrepreneur meetings, programming respect.
And Facebook's early move fast and break things motto, pushing innovation and risk-taking. These aren't just quirks. They're deliberate cultural anchors. And then there's the truly innovative, maybe slightly crazy Freaky Friday technique. Did he really do that?
Apparently so. He actually made the heads of sales engineering and customer support switch jobs permanently. The goal was to force empathy and resolve the constant conflicts between their teams by making them literally walk a mile in each other's shoes, just like the movie.
Did it work?
He says it did. They became the most harmonious groups in the company. It sounds bold, but effective. All of this, the wins, the losses, the hard decisions, the unexpected pivots, it all leads us to the CEO's inner battle in those really tough choices. Ben describes the psychological meltdown as this often hidden reality of the CEO's job. It's feeling isolated, inadequate, like the mean on the test would be 22 out of 100 for a CEO. It's a profoundly lonely place at the top.
And in that lonely place, he takes the view that every single problem in the company is ultimately the CEO's fault.
Yeah.
He used to joke it was all my fault, but says it wasn't really a joke.
Yeah.
As the founding CEO, every hire, every decision, it all traces back. The buck truly, truly stops there.
And ultimately, the most difficult CEO skill, he concludes, isn't some complex strategy. It's simply that they didn't quit. The great CEOs, when asked how they did it, how they survived, consistently say this. It's the sheer perseverance through that unrelenting pressure that sets them apart. It's not about being the smartest. It's about enduring.
And when it comes to evaluating a CEO, he stresses something important. They should be evaluated against their company's unique opportunity, not benchmarked against some other company in a different situation.
Right.
He shares that anecdote about Robin Lai, the CEO of Baidu, being terrified on the day of his company's IPO, not elated, because he felt the weight he owned delivering results. That's a heavy burden.
Finally, we get to the emotional and strategic complexities of deciding whether or not to sell a company. It's a huge decision. He breaks down acquisitions into 3 types: talent tech buys, product buys, and full business acquisitions.
Oh.
And to help mute emotions during this incredibly fraught process, he suggests practical things like paying the CEO a market salary so the decision isn't skewed by personal finances.
That makes sense.
He also advises transparency with employees about the conditions for a potential sale. If the company hits product market fit in a huge market and has a real shot at being number 1, it stays independent. Otherwise, selling might be the right path. It removes some of the guesswork and maybe the personal incentive.
So the core message that Ben Horowitz circles back to, something he got from his grandfather, quoting Karl Marx, is simple but powerful. Life is struggle.
Yeah.
He believes that true understanding, real insight, and unique solutions actually emerge from this struggle. It's not about avoiding it, it's about embracing it, running toward the fire, not away from it.
In his own unusual personal background, from communist grandparents and being a shy kid to navigating those diverse social circles in Berkeley, it really provided him with unique perspectives, approaches that ultimately helped save his company. He credits these hard things in his own life with teaching him how to manage, how to lead. It was those very unusual lenses that gave him the strength, perhaps, to motivate his team, to put the right people together, and just to persevere when logic might have screamed, give up.
Yeah.
It really highlights how our unique life experiences, even the difficult ones, can become our greatest assets in the most challenging times.
This deep dive into Ben Horowitz's journey really illuminates those often unspoken hard things in leadership and entrepreneurship, doesn't it?
It really does.
His candid personal stories offer these profound, actionable lessons that go way beyond the boardroom. They feel like lessons forged in fire, not learned from textbooks.
Yeah, and what stands out most to me thinking about it is how the source material suggests that the most profound insights, our greatest strengths maybe, often come not from avoiding the hard things, but from confronting them head on, even when, your emotions are screaming one thing and your logic says another. So maybe the thought to leave you with is this. What struggles in your own life or work right now might be holding hidden lessons if you were willing or able to embrace them with that same kind of intensity and resolve.